And this is Let's Talk Bitcoin with me, Stephanie.
Hi, this is Andreas Antonopoulos.
And we've got Justice Ranvier with us. Hi, Justice.
Hello.
Thanks for being our guest host. So Andreas has to go to the airport soon, but we really wanted to make sure that we did a conference wrap-up, as we always do when we go to conferences. We got here to the hotel. The hotel is not where the conference is. It's true what they say about Texas. Everything is bigger, so we had to drive, from the airport to the hotel, and then from the hotel to the Circuit of the Americas, where the conference was held. Everything was kind of spread out. There was a lot of different rooms where the speakers were speaking.
I like the fact that the other thing that was bigger was the speed limit and nice straight roads. And when you're driving to a racetrack, you take certain liberties. I don't know. I was in the mood from the moment I left the hotel. And plus, they rented me a Mustang at Enterprise, so that was a lot of fun.
Oh, my. Well, you got a good deal there. During some of the talks, I was hearing cars doing...
Yeah, there were a couple of Ferraris and a Lamborghini doing laps behind us. Unfortunately, they wouldn't let me get on there with the Mustang. Otherwise, rental car, who gives a shit? It would have been fun.
I'm pretty sure that Lamborghini was the first Lamborghini ever purchased with Bitcoin.
Oh, really?
The yellow Lamborghini that was at the show?
It was. I heard it was purchased with Bitcoin, yes. But the person wanted to be anonymous or something.
Right. So he brought a Lamborghini to a Bitcoin conference and drove it around the track to be anonymous.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't believe he's anonymous according to his forum profile. On the Bitcoin Talk forums, I guess I would call him formerly known as Goat, because he's changed his username. But
that's
very
Mr.
few,
Goat to you.
Yeah, very few people know his real name. I don't know his real name. I didn't even get a chance to meet him. Some of our other organizers did. But that was his yellow Lamborghini that was out on the site.
Oh, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, so what were your overall impressions of the conference? Oh, I guess we should say Justice was helping to organize the conference.
Right. The conference was originally a Meetup Plus. See, I'm a member of the Austin Meetup group, and we have weekly meetings. And last summer...
Very active. There's a lot of people that come, right?
Yeah, 40 to 60 people every week.
Mm-hmm.
Last summer, we were doing a thing where once a month, we would have a slightly more formal meetup, a little bit better than our weekly ones. And we were on hiatus for the winter holiday. We were thinking in October, maybe in the spring, we should do something a little bit bigger than normal. Maybe a few hundred people.
Mm-hmm.
And once the ball got rolling, it turned into the size of the conference that what we had now. And
that's a theme for Bitcoin. Once the ball got rolling.
Yes. And we were not really prepared for this scale of conference. We knew that we should have started planning 6 months before we did. And even then we got off to a slow start. But even with all the problems that we had, I think it turned out very well. Our professional organizers that we hired to help did an excellent job.
They really did. I mean, everything was taken care of. I felt very welcomed. And
yeah, no, it was a great conference. I really enjoyed it. I mean, You guys set the tone. Community organized, community sponsored. You picked the right set of speakers. It was about the community, from the community.
That was the best part about it, I think. It was just there was a theme of these are people who really care about Bitcoin and are invested in it. And these are not people who found out about Bitcoin 2 months ago and want to make some money off of it. These are people who are they truly care.
And charity was a very big part of the theme of the conference. There were a lot of panels on charity. There were a lot of charitable organizations.
We had a charity luncheon.
A
lot of the attendees went to the charity luncheon, and there was performance there and put on really well by Sean's Outpost, organized by Michelle Seven, who was working with them.
Yeah, Sean's Outpost, Free Aid,
Bitcoin 100,
and
Bitcoin Not Bombs, Antiwar.com. Yep.
Oh, and Antiwar, yes, of course. And there's a great lineup of charitable organizations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say that the one thing, my biggest takeaway of where we were weakest is we didn't really take care of our exhibitors as well as we thought. We didn't drive enough foot traffic through there because everybody was at the speakers. Mm-hmm. We had the 2-level setup where the exhibitors were downstairs and the speaking was upstairs.
Yeah, they were kind of in the basement. And
yeah. From a market perspective, that might suck a tiny bit, but at the same time, a conference that focuses on content, that focuses on having great speakers, focuses on community, and then kind of forgets the exhibitors on the sidelines is maybe a bit better than the other way around, which is what I've seen in a lot of the commercial conferences, right?
Well, some of the exhibitors were more community kind of organizations, True. So,
I went through the expo hall. I saw both of the rooms, visited all of the booths.
There were 3 rooms.
There were 3 rooms. So I visited both of the rooms in a 2 of 3 pattern. And missed
It was a
one of them.
multi-sig transaction.
Yeah. Whoops.
M of N rooms.
That's kind of exactly. Well, the weather contributed to it because the exhibitors were in the bays where the actual race cars go to.
Yeah, the pit stops. They were in the pit stop bays, right? The garages.
And because the weather turned cold over the weekend, we couldn't leave the doors open. So a lot of the exhibitors, they couldn't see in. Our plan was that the doors would be open. It was going to be a nice March spring day. And so that would have driven more foot traffic. In the end, a lot of people just didn't know they were down there because we had to bring in space heaters and shut the doors to keep the exhibits warm.
Yeah. The space was a bit difficult to get to and a bit difficult to work in, but the energy of the community was so awesome. And the concert at the end was really great too.
One thing I thought was really cool that was different from a lot of other conferences that I've been to. Most conferences, they usually have a main speaker and that's the only person who's speaking at that time, or maybe 1 or maybe 2 tracks. But this had 5 tracks, and there were sometimes 5 speakers on at the same time, or panels or whatever that you could choose from. And there was a strict time limit on the speakers' talks to 20 minutes with 20 minutes for questions and then another 20 minutes to get to the next room. So I thought that format worked really well, especially with the venue. And it was cool because, being a speaker, sometimes I feel like, oh God, I have an hour and what am I going to say in an hour and how am I going to fit that in and do questions. But having it limited to 20 minutes really took the pressure off, and it became a little bit more of an informal thing where people could really ask a lot of questions if they wanted to and get to know the speaker.
Yeah, and it was managed very well. It was very strictly managed
moderated,
in terms of managing the time. And I feel like if you have something you can say in an hour, you can say it in 20 minutes.
Sure.
And you could probably say it better and more focused if you do it in 20 minutes. So the rest is extraneous. And give us more time for doing questions, which was a 50-50 split, which was much better.
Yeah, I'm glad you two liked that. That came out of our very first planning session when we were sitting at the Central Market where we had our weekly meetups. Mm-hmm. A lot of us had been to Bitcoin conferences before, and we were trying to think of what are the things that we could improve on. And we all knew there's never enough time for audience questions because at Bitcoin conferences, the audience always wants to participate. So we said at our first meeting, let's do equal time for audience questions just to make it a more participatory.
It was great. It was a lot of fun. I think the audience really got a lot of value out of this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they felt like it was focused on, it's for them. And another thing that you did that went along with that theme was sort of the general admission track or the free admission track where anybody could go to certain talks. Like, for instance, I gave a talk the very first slot of the conference called Intro to Bitcoin for Newbies, in 20 minutes. And so people could come to that were just bit curious, and they did. And actually,
without even paying a fee for the conference? That's brilliant.
Well, it wasn't quite like that. We started out planning just 3 tracks, and there was 1 ticket price. As the scope of the conference expanded, we added one of our sponsors, Mastercoin, wanted the hackathon. And they gave us some extra sponsorship to extend to 2 days. And then we had more content to fill. We had lots of speakers pouring in, and we had more rooms. So we said, well, these other 2 tracks that have just shown up, we'll let the people who pay for the hackathon also go to those. The highest ticket price included the 3 main tracks, which were going to be the only tracks. The extra tracks turned into be full tracks in their own right. And we had a general admission price that would get you those, but not the first 3, because we didn't want to upset the people who paid full price initially when we first announced the conference. But we also wanted a lower priced option for people who wanted to come, but couldn't maybe afford the $300 for the full access.
That's nice. You didn't do the usual Bitcoin thing, which is take payments in Bitcoin, then delay delivery for 9 months, and then give refunds in dollars. That's a good thing. Let me ask you something else. How many people do you think came to the conference? Do you have any numbers at this point? I
didn't check the numbers. Not as many as what we had space to accommodate.
Okay. But more than you expected for a Meetup Plus, for sure.
More. We were more optimistic. We didn't get as many people as we hoped. Mm-hmm. I rough back of the envelope guess, I would say we got about half of the people we were hoping to see. Our hopes were formed when the Bitcoin price was over $1,000, and that was bringing a lot of excitement in. Now that there's been a bit of a slump, we didn't get as much buzz as we thought we would. But it's still there were enough people there to make it a successful event.
Yeah, I think it was great. Can you say if you're going to break even on this?
Well, personally, I was not involved in any of the financial aspects. As far as I can tell, everything is taken care of.
Great.
Excellent.
That's good news.
Yeah, that's good to know. So, and do you think there's going to be another one next year?
Yeah, the Texas Bitcoin Association was formed to do more of these events, and they're definitely planning more. Maybe one a year, maybe more than one a year.
Yeah.
I
have one request next time for if the speaking halls are not called paddocks, I would feel more comfortable.
All right.
Not so much like a horse.
Yes. I felt that that name, while it complies with the Austin, Texas theme of cowboyism.
Oh, you didn't know that extra 20 minutes was for giving horsey rides around the room after you spoke?
No. Well, I was expecting my breakfast to be in a trough, and I wasn't into that. So
well, that's the Circuit of the Americas term for those rooms, and we
I know.
kept with it.
So let's talk about the themes in the conference and what some of the talks were. I was really pleased to see that there were talks about Bitcoin privacy and anonymity. There were talks about Bitcoin as an experiment in anarchism. There were talks about liberty and freedom explicitly. That's what I spoke about in my second talk. There were panels about what happened. Well, you were both on a panel about what happened with Mt. Gox.
Two panels. One where we talked about what happened and the environment within which it happened. And then another panel where we talked about next steps, how we can look forward and improve things as an industry so these things don't happen again. Where we talked about cryptographic proofs and open transactions and things like that. Better ways of doing this.
Yeah, so we had a focus on solutions for using Bitcoin basically as a tool for freedom and bringing us forward into the future of Bitcoin. I think that was a tagline of the conference, right? Racing into the future. And there was, I think, a real focus on where Bitcoin is going and some of the things that were highlighted. I was really pleased to see the history of Bitcoin, the roots of Bitcoin and where it's going in the future.
I would say this is probably the most libertarian heavy Bitcoin conference I've been to. I think partly because it was in Texas, partly because of some of the speakers who were invited, and that was kind of fun. It was a different environment. It was a slightly different feel to it than some of the other conferences, which were more commercial. And I'm not saying, that all should be libertarian, but that way you get a bit of variety in the various conferences. They bring different points of view.
But it's not an accident that you came here, Andreas, right? Because you said you were going to boycott North American conferences, if they had that special corporate feel to them, right? Right.
As I said to Justice, the reason I came to this, and I'm going to be doing a couple more North American conferences, is because it's organized by the community. It's a grassroots event. It's not organized as a corporate theme to accommodate the sponsors. It's organized by the community to accommodate the community and their views. And so I got a feel for this. It had a very specific point of view. I'm also going to Toronto to do that conference with Bitcoin Decentral up there.
Next month.
And that's going to have a very different feel. I don't think it's going to be as much about libertarian ideals as this one was, but we're probably going to talk more about Ethereum, and we're going to talk about a few other things like that. So you really get to get the different point of view from the different communities.
I would say there was definitely some tension in choosing who we were going to invite as speakers. There's the kind of speakers that the sponsors might want to hear, and there's the kind of speakers that will engage the community and get them excited, especially if we want them excited to ever come back to Austin. Mm-hmm. So it just so happens that the libertarian-leaning speakers, let's say they're just better at engaging an audience. People will say, oh, I had so much fun listening to Jeffrey Tucker and Andreas and Stefan Molyneux. All of those are the speakers that really get the audience excited for having come to the conference. Now,
I had one of my most memorable moments was watching Stefan Molyneux and cracking up laughing when he was discussing how the libertarian movement had been trying to fight the state for a very long time, and suddenly Bitcoin as this technology comes out of left field and offers just a straightforward solution to bypass the state. And he does this little comedy skit where he says, it's like trying to fight Muhammad Ali, and you step into the ring with a blow dart and just go and drop him. It's like he spent all this time training and there's no way you can compete. You just pull out the blow dart, and that happens to be Bitcoin. And I love little things like that. It was a very nicely done speech.
Stefan Molyneux is someone you bring to a conference if you want the audience to have fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, we might have had an easier time attracting sponsors had we had a lot of regulators and lawyers on the panels. But nobody goes to a Bitcoin conference and said, wow, I
want to see that regulator.
Yes. I learned about the definitions of money service businesses, and I had an awesome time. I definitely want to come back to Austin for that.
Yeah.
That
well, actually, you had one regulatory panel. I did go in to watch that. I lasted about 45 seconds before narcolepsy took over, and I ran out. But here's the thing. There were 4 other tracks happening at the same time, and that was one of the few panels that bored me. Or actually the only panel that bored me throughout the entire conference, which was the exact opposite of some of the other experiences I've had, where there was only 1 or 2 exciting sessions. Here it was all exciting sessions. You can't make them all perfect. Some of them are going to be boring to some people. For me, that one was one of them. But I had so many choices and really enjoyed it.
I'm glad you two liked it. I'm glad the audience. I heard a lot of people enjoying themselves at the conference, and that's really what it was about.
Yeah, and often when you go to a conference, it's about the people that are there too, not just the speakers, but just the attendees, right? And it was a great group of attendees. I mean, everyone was friendly. I had 0 bad experiences. Everyone was just super nice. Kudos on that for attracting a good group of people. Andreas, do you have to get going?
Not yet.
Okay.
I've got 5 more minutes.
What would you like to add, in the last couple minutes that we have about your experiences at the conference or anything else you want to add too, Justice?
I think one of the things we saw at this conference, which was really nice, was a focus on the future and looking at a lot of the new technologies that can allow us to turn programmable money into a safer experience than fiat. Whereas right now we are having some security issues. We're having security issues that are kind of obvious, like putting your trust in organizations and giving them the contents of your keys, which can only end badly. But, there are other problems in the industry with phishing and compromised machines and users who are really, it takes a lot of experience and expertise to properly secure your Bitcoin. Paper wallets, offline storage, all of this stuff is way too complicated. And we saw a conference where a lot of people, a lot of companies, a lot of coders were talking about solutions that can make it easy, seamless, intuitive to just secure your Bitcoin by default and get to a place where Bitcoin is more secure than banks. And I think we're going to get to that place pretty soon in 2014. I was very excited to see that. And that provides a wonderful answer to all of these regulators who are saying, you trusted the wrong people, now trust these people. And we look at those people and say, that's the same people who lost trillions of dollars in 2008 and didn't go to jail. So how about no? How about we trust some algorithms instead? And that's an okay argument to make, and the libertarian crowd will cheer you on. But the problem is that argument has no backing. But if instead the argument is, well, here's some technology solutions, here's how they actually work, and here's how they make this type of regulation unnecessary, that's a winning argument, and we can have it. In fact, I tweeted about some algorithmic approaches to regulation to Ben Losky a few days ago, and they contacted me back from his office, and they want to have a serious discussion about how to implement these. So if we take at least some of the regulators at face value and say they're interested in protecting consumers, we can challenge that idea and say, you're interested in protecting consumers. Here are some technology solutions that don't involve regulation through institutions that will protect consumers. Put your money where your mouth is. Put your regulation behind us, and we can solve this.
Yeah, I love that approach. I also want to say a quick word about security since you brought it up. It's not just about securing Bitcoins. It's also about individual PC security.
Yeah.
We had at this conference in the month leading up, one organizer's Gmail account password was compromised and one of the volunteers, and the attackers used those compromised Gmail accounts to send out very specific personalized spear phishing emails to some of our sponsors and speakers.
Yep, got one.
Then that was extremely scary because this wasn't just drive-by malware. This is the advanced persistent threat targeted at our conference and then going after our speakers and conferences. So secure your PCs. If you've been procrastinating, don't procrastinate anymore.
Yeah, and put two-factor authentication on your primary email. That's probably one of the most important things you need to do right now, because you could protect everything else, and then people send password resets to your primary email and take over every one of your accounts.
I've actually gone to the step of where I don't browse outside of virtualized environments anymore. My web browsing is split between 4 virtual machines. I have one virtual machine for Google Sites, and it is the only browser that can accept Google cookies.
Yeah.
I have one virtual machine that runs a browser that only accesses Facebook, and no other virtual machine's browser can have Facebook cookies. So I've taken it like a few more steps because, I'm increasingly paranoid. People who are known to have been in Bitcoin for a while are going to come under specific professional, highly targeted attacks. So take the precautions sooner rather than later and don't put them off.
Yeah, as I've said for a very long time, I keep the vast majority of my Bitcoin offline.
As I do.
On paper wallets, and now BIP38 encrypted paper wallets distributed in multiple continents. The point is that this is not a solution that the mainstream can use yet.
Right.
But we're getting better. So, I see it very similar to the way the internet was in 1992. You had to have Unix command line skills in order to send an email, and it took 2 days to cross the internet. And my mom was never going to do that. But guess what? My mom now has an iPad, and she can do all of that. So will my mom have a Bitcoin wallet? Not in the next 5 years. But we're going to get it to the point where it's going to be easy enough and intuitive enough and fully secure that, yes, she will have a Bitcoin wallet at some point.
The last point was, it's not just your Bitcoins that you have to protect. It's also your reputation. Somebody who can get access to send email as you will use your name to make their spear phishing more profitable and give a higher chance of success. And that's what we saw with the attacks on the conference.
Yeah, that's a big problem. I'm worried about that for sure.
It seems like we are getting to the end of our time. Justice, I just want to thank you and all the other organizers of the Texas Bitcoin Conference for putting on a great event. And I really enjoyed this. This was definitely a lot more enjoyable than other Bitcoin conferences I've been to in the past, frankly, because of the community focus and because of the explicit libertarian bet. So really appreciate all your work on that.
Thanks, Stephanie, and I'm glad everybody had a great time.
Would you like to buy Bitcoin? Cash into Coins provides the fastest, easiest, and safest way to buy Bitcoin in the United States. Simply place an order online, deposit cash at any supported bank, and relax. Cash into Coins will verify your deposit and send out your Bitcoin within 24 hours. Join tens of thousands of people who have purchased from Cash into Coins. What are you waiting for? Buy your Bitcoin today. Go to cashintocoins.com. That's cashintocoins.com.